Hello YouTubers, Jim from Ohio here, and it's been a little while since I've done an update on my DIY solar system, and thought I'd just give everybody a quick update on how things have been going. It's been a very busy summer, so a lot of this project has been put on hold. You can see we've got a cloudy day today. Not making a whole lot of solar power, but we are still making some, so that's good. I do have everything hooked up now with this particular system. However, this rack right here, this is going to be the one that I use for heating water. Haven't got started on that. One thing that I did do, however, I did go ahead and when I ran the wiring for the other system, I did go ahead and do that, and I've got everything enclosed in PVC, as you can see, and quick disconnect switch here. On this system right here, some of the things that I've done so far is you can probably see the discoloration in the grass right there. That's where I ran my trench and all of the cabling going up to the house. Got everything about 18 inches deep there. I'm not really sure what code is. Somebody said they thought it was 24 inches. Somebody else said 18. I'm not concerned about it. I'm not going to be cutting anything else or running any other wiring anytime soon. You can see the garden's going crazy here. We've got a little bit of everything growing. That's been where part of my time has gone. A lot of yard work's been going on. A lot of work at my job's been taking place. But underneath here, same thing. I have a quick disconnect for the two systems that are running off of these 12 panels. Everything enclosed in conduit, and this is the gray electrical conduit that is both rated for water and UV protection. So up here in my gravel, I did not bury it. It is on the surface. On the outside in front of this, where it runs over to the other rack that'll be used for my PV water heating system, I did go ahead and dig a trench just a couple inches deep. That way it's not a tripping hazard. Nobody's going to be walking under this, so I didn't really see a need to bury it. But I do have the 4 panels on the top row are wired in to this disconnect box, and those are the 4 panels that are running the 1 kilowatt grid tie with limiter, the blue device you've seen in my basement. And then this quick disconnect goes to the other 8 panels, and that's going to the off-grid PIP inverter that I have. We'll go ahead and run inside. I just wanted to show everybody, yeah, I could probably do a little better cable management. Right now my goal was to just get everything working and tested, and everything seems to be working pretty well. The wiring isn't that bad, but I'm not really sure how it should be. I don't know if there's any kind of code on whether this can be wrapped around or if it had to be tucked inside the channel. If anybody knows anything about that, leave a comment down below and let me know, and maybe I'll do some more cleaning up later on. But we'll go inside and take a look. One of the things, this was just a tip that I'd like to share with everybody. Inside of each of my quick disconnect boxes, I did put one of these tools for connecting and disconnecting the PV connectors. If you ever have to take any of these things apart, you'll know that you'll need a tool like this. So rather than having to go in the house every time I need one, I felt it would be good to just keep one handy, so I might go ahead and just keep it in there. Have another one over in this box. That way I know that if one of them disappears or breaks or something, I've always got a spare nearby. But let's take a walk inside and I'll let you see what we've got going on in there now. Real quickly, before we go inside, I just wanted to show everybody where I penetrated the house. This is one of the open elbows. Just have a piece of PVC running in that goes about a foot into the house, and that is sealed up. so that no water can penetrate. Then I do have elbow coming off. It's curved down, and actually when it gets about to right here, it drops off. You see it's level with the ground right there. I didn't want to dig right up against the foundation of the house and possibly mess up any drain tile or anything like that. So I did extend out from the house before going down deeper into the ground. And then that's the trail where it runs over to the rack over there. Okay, so back down in the basement, and sorry for all the noise that's taking place in the background. I've got my wife's doing a load of laundry off to this side. We have a dehumidifier that's running, and also my wife's upstairs canning some things from the garden. So the well pump and the sump pump are kicking on and off occasionally. Hopefully that's not too disturbing. But so you can see, well, I've got the screen blanked out on this device, but you can see that it is working. I've got looks like about 351 watts going in to the grid, or into my whole local home grid right now. Everything in this box is working just the way that I had intended. So far, since I've turned the system on, I've put about 28 kilowatts, this bottom number here, almost 29 kilowatts back into my home. So that's pretty good just for a few days of usage so far. And all of the different timers and everything are working exactly the way that I had hoped that they would work, with the disconnects and everything that's down here to protect this device. One thing that I did do, it was recommended on one of the things that I saw online. Somebody mentioned that the most common failure on these is the little electronic screen. So it was recommended that you disable that, and there is a section in the menu. If you go to the home menu and the options, I think it's the gear right here, you can set whether you want the screen to automatically turn off, or if you want it to stay on all the time. And just to risk burning that out, I've got it turned off. Which is another reason that this meter right here is so nice, because this bottom number is the amount of watts that are being put into the system with this device. So I don't really need to watch the screen all the time. I can just look over here and see what is being produced. One of the things that I did notice does not appear to be right with this device, and I'm going to be doing a little bit more research, and I'll do another video as I do some testing. But when you come over here and look, this number is the amount of watts being produced by the system, and this number right here is supposed to be the number of watts that my home is consuming on the 110 leg of my circuit breaker box over there, that clamp that I talked about before, which is right here, is connected to. Now I've tried 3 different clamps, and I seem to get the same issue. Like right now it's showing 971, just dropped down to 755 watts. But that sense monitor, the whole home monitor, which is this device right here, I've got this monitoring both of my 110 legs, and I can view those independent of each other. And according to the sense monitor, when I compare it with this monitor that's using the clamp connector, this number right here appears to be exactly 50% of what that is reading. Now I trust this device a little bit more than I trust the device that's in here. So what I'm wondering, if possibly when they put the electronic components in here, if maybe they substituted a component and something is half the value that it's supposed to be, because I am not getting what appears to be a true readout from that device. I'm not getting the same reading, and what I find interesting, it is exactly half of what that is reading. So what the plan to troubleshoot will be is I'm going to turn off all of the breakers in my house except for the one that this is running on, which is dedicated, and I know there's no other power being used. And then I'm going to find and isolate one of my other outlets in the house and plug in a light bulb, something that I can measure with my kilowatt meter so that I know exactly how much that light bulb is using. And then I'm going to compare it with what this shows as a load, and that should tell me if this is right or if that is right. Right now I'm suspecting there's a problem with this. Now, as I mentioned, I did swap out. I've tried 3 different clamps, so I know it's not one of the clamps there. So it's got to be something in there. Onto this other system. As you know, the PIP system is an off-grid system, and I've got 8 of my 255 watt panels out in the yard now coming into this. So I actually just got that part of it wired outside today, so I'm testing for the very first time as we speak, and looking at the Watch Power software, I can see that I do have some power coming in from my solar panels, and right now, if you can, hopefully you can see the little graphic. It looks like power's coming in, and it is charging my battery bank. So I see little lines going down that way. I also see a line that's going straight across to, well, right now it's saying source battery, and I'll explain that, but it does look like I have a load going on, and I'll explain what that is. So by these numbers right here, according to this, I have 467 watts coming in from my panels outside. Then this is my battery voltage. It's right now showing 57% state of charge. And the charging current is currently showing 0. And a short time ago that was actually showing and it was charging the batteries. But what I did, now I still don't have my switch, my generator transfer switch hooked up, so the only load that I have is on this outlet right here. So what I wanted to do was put a load on this device just to test everything out. And so for right now I've got an extension cable that's running across my floor, and this dehumidifier is running totally on solar and battery power right now. Now I do have it connected through a kilowatt meter, and you can see on the kilowatt meter that, hopefully you can see that, it's currently pulling 596 watts to run this device. And so I know that that'll put a good load, but it will not overload anything here. This is a 2400 watt inverter. And so as long as I don't exceed 2400 watts, everything should be good. So the reason that my batteries were not charging is because the load that I was pulling with that dehumidifier was higher than the input power coming in from the solar panels. So right now what I've got, I did hear it just now, the dehumidifier switch kicked over to fan only mode, and when it did that, you can see the wattage that was being used drop down. It's now only pulling 71 watts, and therefore I have an excess amount of power coming in from the panels. So now the panels are producing 364 watts. The output going to that dehumidifier is only 72 watts right now. So I have an excess, and so you can see now the charging current for the batteries has jumped up. I'm charging them at 10 amps. Now this device will charge up to 60 amps, but according to the manufacturer of my Valence batteries, they recommend not exceeding 10 amps on a charger. So that's what I have my Watch Power software set up to do. So now every now and then I am noticing when there's increase in what is being output from the panels. Every now and then this is jumping up to 11 amps, but then it's immediately correcting itself and dropping back down to 10. So it looks like the Watch Power software is doing what it's supposed to do. I'm going to keep monitoring this over the next several days and seeing how it handles the batteries. Currently, let me go in and change the menu up here. I'll show you a little bit more about how I have this configured. Currently I have this set up so that the charger for the batteries is solar first, and what that means is if there is power coming in from the solar panels, then that power will be used to charge the batteries if they need to be charged. If there's not enough solar coming in, then what it'll do, if you remember, I do have this inverter also connected to a 40 amp breaker in my circuit panel. So what it'll do is if the batteries drop down below a certain voltage and there's no solar radiance available, then it'll charge my batteries off of the grid. Otherwise, it is set up for solar first, and that can be changed to solar only if I want, and I'm debating. I think I'll test for a few days and then maybe make some adjustments. The next line down that I'd like you to look at is the output source priority, and it says SBU. Now what that means is my output power, meaning the dehumidifier that I'm running, what this means is it'll use solar power first if there's enough solar power available. If there's not, then what it'll do is it'll use the B, which is the battery power, next. And then if the batteries drop down to a certain voltage, then what it'll do is it'll go to U, which is the utility grid. So this device has an automatic transfer switch in it. So what it'll do is automatically switch back and forth between solar, batteries, or the grid as needed. And that was why I chose this particular device. I should be able to run it 24 hours a day, and as long as I don't exceed my 2400 watts with this, should be able to run everything just perfect. I'm not going to really get into this too much because your particular situation may be a little bit different depending on the batteries you have, depending on the solar panels that you have. I would like to point out that in the US we use a 120 volt system, so that's what this is set to. I've got it set at 22 volts for my back to grid voltage. What that means is if the batteries ever drop down to 22 volts, which is, it's a 24 volt system that I've got configured here, but I can drain these batteries. Actually I can drain them totally if I want to. I'm not going to do that. I've got it set up so that when they hit 22 volts it'll automatically switch back to the grid. I've got my maximum charging current set at 10 amps. Same thing, that's for solar. Same thing for AC charging, I've got set at 10 amps. And then once it's doing charging, as I mentioned, this is the cutoff voltage. It'll switch back to the grid at 22 volts. This number right here just means that when it hits 27 volts, it'll automatically switch back over to using the batteries. So that's what I've got going on now for this system. The next thing that I plan on doing is working a little bit on my the solar hot water system. I've got to finish up that rack. At the same time that I ran my PV cables, which are the red and black cables, you can see I've got one pair coming down to this quick disconnect, got another one coming over to this quick disconnect, and then I've got one more pair of cables that runs across the ceiling, and it actually comes down back here, which is behind my water heater. So the next thing that I'll do is when I get my panels mounted for my the solar water heater, I'll be connecting into this, and we'll be doing a real quick modification to this 85-gallon hot water heater right here. So that'll be another video further down the road, but for now I am operational. Everything's running good so far with the exception of the readout of the power being used here, and I'll do another video on that when I do some troubleshooting. Thanks for watching. If anyone has any questions, comments, or suggestions, feel free to leave them down below, and tune in when you see my next video posted. Thanks and take care. Have a good one.